No matter how many times Donald Trump attempts to divert attention from the victims of Epstein, his best friends, decades of violent abuse and predation, it won't work. Sure, this strategy that he has come up with as of last night is a short-term fix for an imminent problem. But this will backfire eventually. Now let's talk about it. Last night, Donald Trump acted as if he has always wanted the Epstein files that the Department of Justice has released. He literally said, I've always been for it. I mean, this is a tweet he put out, right? Or a post on True Social. He's like, I've always wanted this. And he told the House Republicans who will be voting this week to release them, to go do it, that they should do this, that these documents should not be hidden, because his reasoning was, it's a distraction that we're talking about this. Let's get this out here, and that it's only Democrats, men who are affiliated with the Democratic Party or were, who are the problem. So we're going to go after them. That is what he is saying. This is just hours after he was saying the opposite. I mean, he was calling people into the Situation Room in the White House, right? He was calling people in there to, I think that was either Lauren Boebert was called in to be pressured not to vote on the discharge petition. But over the weekend, Donald Trump comes to find out that there might be even up to 100 Republicans who vote to release this. And he does not want to be seen as weak, because he does not want the Republicans to vote against him, because that will give them the courage to vote against him in the future, right? So now he's saying, vote for this, and that they're entitled to, the House Subcommittee on Government Oversight is entitled to whatever they're legally entitled to. Give them whatever they're legally entitled to. Well, guys, we're not falling for this. I mean, there's so many reasons why. First of all, you don't need Congress. You don't need the House, and you don't need the Senate. You don't need an act of Congress to release the Epstein files. You know what you need? A phone call or a tweet at Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, and tell her, release them. That's all that is needed. But we already know he's not going to do that. He has set this up. He told Pam Bondi last week, begin an investigation. And he listed the people. I think it was Bill Clinton. I think he said Reid Hoffman, Larry Summers, whatever. Fine. I'm for investigations. Let me tell you, for a long time, I've wanted us to be rid of Larry Summers' arrogant, backdated, sexist, and now we find out racist attitudes and analysis. So yeah, and let it all out there. But that is not by telling Pam to do that. He only wants Pam, his Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to investigate people that are his enemies. But it doesn't matter, because if she is actually investigating people, then she will be able to say, well, I really wish I could give out these documents, but I can't. These folks are under investigation, and she will let that investigation run for as long as she is in office, right? The other option is, so he's putting these Republicans in this place where they're going to have to vote for the release of this. Then maybe over in the Senate, who knows if this will even come to a vote, right? John Thune could slow it down, or he could speed it up. It really doesn't matter, because the vote is a sham. It's a sham. That's what it is. So, when I created the thumbnail for today's show, that basically, friends, it basically said, let them fight, right? The deal with that is, that they were still fighting as of yesterday, late in the afternoon, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump. And that fight won't go away. Donald Trump has thrown, and by the way, I have no love for Marjorie Taylor Greene. Even yesterday, when she was on the Sunday news shows, she, she said so many ridiculous and offensive things. And even though on Blue Sky I said I would offer her the space laser that we Jews have, that's true. I mean, if she can wield that space laser to bring down Donald Trump, I'm good for that. But she is not part of the tent. I say big tent, not for her. She is someone who, even though she says she's not anti-Semitic, clearly is. And she's also a Looney Tune and just wants power. Nevertheless, it's great when they're fighting because, as a friend of mine said, everybody stops to watch a fight. And when Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump are fighting, people are paying attention to, well, what's the beef? What are they fighting over? Right? And when you have a lot of people from both sides of the aisle saying they don't like Marjorie Taylor Greene, but she's right that these documents should come out, that helped put the pressure on Donald Trump. But let's talk about how crazy he is. Last night, he's saying House Republicans should vote for this. But earlier in the day, and the day before, Saturday and Sunday, he is saying Marjorie Taylor Greene is a rhino, that she's a Republican in name only because she is undermining him. I mean, he sends this mixed message over the weekend until last night. It's like if you vote for the discharge petition, you're betraying me. And now it's like, well, you better vote for it, right? So this fight with Marjorie Taylor Greene, though, isn't going to dissolve. He's at war with her, and I'm sure still with Tom Massey. And you know what? Let them fight. Now we shall see. Now, what's really important for me today, because I do want to get to our money and law topics. I want to start, though, with what this is all about, because all of this is about money, law, and power. It's about people abusing the power they have in the world, that being wealthy and well-connected brings you. And this is the kind of power that Jeff Epstein wielded. It creates a kind of shield around you for decades, allowing you to be a predator. And when we talk about the kind of predation that people like Jeffrey Epstein and others are engaged in, including Donald Trump, we're talking about money laundering and tax evasion and child abuse. It's all of the above. It's a sense of entitlement to see the world as your resources, you as the main character, and everyone else in the parlance of video games is an NPC, a non-player character, without a memory. That doesn't matter. But it turns out, my friends, we are not non-player characters. The dignity of all people matters. And so you see this again, it's the predatory behavior across the board. And it includes the way the custom and border control, as well as ICE, are treating people in the effort to round up and deport people who have overstayed, shall I say, their welcome. I mean, it's hardly welcome here, in abusing people's legal rights and human rights. And we see that the Catholic Church now is increasingly standing against this behavior because, again, you know what? There's some things about the Catholic Church that I don't share the same values, but I sure do share the core value of Catholicism as I understand it. I had a friend who I'd been to Mass with her for many times, and it seems like human dignity is at the core of their teachings. And excuse me, I apologize. And I hear Joanna saying, yeah, and the Catholic Church has some experience with cover-up too. Yes. I think that we often just point to the role of the Catholic Church in covering up years of sex abuse by clergy. And it turns out, it's all institutions where we allow men to have too much power. Not all men, but some men who behave this way get away with it because other men are afraid of them and because they have too much power to go up against. Now, but what this is about, let's talk. What I want to share with you now, again, before we get to the specific updates about money and law, I want to share with you the victims in their own words, because they are going to be, I believe, tomorrow back at the Capitol. However, in the meantime, they have put out a very, very powerful message you may have already heard, but I would like to make sure that you hear it now, right here, because this should guide us. Here we go. Let me just share my screen and get that to you right now. Okay, here we go.
There are about 1,000 of us.
It's time to bring the secrets out of the shadows. It's time to shine a light into the darkness.
So, how does that make you feel? Because I've had a hard time with this the past weekend. I feel like in this fight and in this who's in the emails, which of course is important to help us understand whom we can trust and who helped participate in this cover up, and maybe even who can still be held accountable in the courts. But what is getting lost here are specifically these women right here. They're getting lost. And I'm so glad the ones who can choose to use their voices will be. Because the sadness is inside of all of us, and you see these women are the children. We are still thinking through the minds of the children we used to be. And some people get stuck there because of trauma and other reasons. And even if you have worked through it and worked beyond it, that trauma is still there, and it gets triggered by these events. And I got to tell you, there's a way in which you see some people talking about this or posting on social media. And maybe they need to think about how they do it, because there's a way that some people make it a joke, or I got to tell you how much I hate these way people. Well, I shouldn't criticize. I want people to express themselves. I'm just saying, think about if you are not a victim of any kind of sexual or physical abuse, think about someone you know who might be. Or even if you are, think about a second how what you are posting might affect them. You know, sometimes I think maybe I don't do the best job around this. And so as I see these victims, I do see how critical that is. So look, and I'm seeing here, Joanna, I love what you're writing. PTSD is something you never get away from. It haunts you, but you can come home and be healthy. Yes. Yes. All of us, I hear this. This is hard. This is hard stuff. So I don't love when people like Donald Trump are playing games, and people in the press are not always paying attention to this. So let's look at what he actually said in this post. I want to add this to the stage. You probably can't see this in its entire, obviously, but you can see how long and ranty it is. And I want you to hear this. As I said on Friday night aboard Air Force One, no, he didn't, to the fake news media, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files. He didn't say that on Air Force One, because we have nothing to hide, and it's time to move on from the Democrat hoax perpetrated by radical left lunatics in order to deflect from the great success of the Republican Party, including our recent victory on the Democrat shutdown. It wasn't the Democratic shutdown. They could have opened the government by ending the filibuster. Then he goes on here talking about all the pages that were handed over. And he then says, and the House Oversight Committee can have whatever they are legally entitled to. I don't care. All I care about is that Republicans get back on point, which is the economy and affordability, and so on, right? So, yeah, that's what he is saying. But does he really want the Republicans to get back on point about the economy and affordability? Because that ain't going so well for him. I think you will now see he wants people talking about money and how much things cost. Well, not exactly, my friends, because here's the deal. When he puts his lackeys on the news programs, my friends, to talk about prices, specifically of groceries, when he tries to get people to tell that lie that a turkey dinner at Walmart is cheaper than it was a year ago, people like Jonathan Carr on This Week, the ABC program, has the receipts. Let's watch that. It's so important because, as I said at the outset, he is going to stall on these Epstein files. And it's not going to go away. But if he wants to pivot back to what a crappy job he is doing for everybody in this country, let's look at what he is saying we should look at. Okay, let me play this clip.
The president claims that Thanksgiving costs are down 25%. I mean, does he know that's not true?
Well, if you look at Walmart and the few places that put out their prices of Thanksgiving baskets.
Wait a minute. I got to stop because the Walmart comparison's like not a thing. I mean, Walmart had a Thanksgiving package last year. They've got a Thanksgiving package this year. The one this year contains much less than what the one last year took. So that's why the price is less. Look, we got a chart here. Last year, it was 21 total products. This year, it's 15. Total number of items in those products was 29% now. 29, now it's 22. There's more generic brand stuff. So, I mean, Thanksgiving, if you're going to the store to buy groceries for Thanksgiving, it's going to be more expensive this year.
I really don't understand where you're going in the sense that Joe Biden gave us 20%
He's not
inflation.
president. Donald Trump's president.
No, and you want us to fix the hole that Joe Biden dug right away.
Why does the president tell everybody?
The prices went up so much under Joe Biden, and inflation is way down. Inflation is about half what it was in December. This is something that's being fixed fast, and real incomes are up after dropping about $3,000 under Joe Biden. And so, sure, you could find a few things where the price is higher, but there's a whole bunch of stuff where the price is lower, like gasoline, like mortgage rates. When are we going to get the
Republican plan to
You understand that mortgage rates have gone way down, and it's much cheaper to buy a home now than it was when President Trump took office.
Down, right?
Yeah.
So,
So here's the problem. I wish Jonathan Carl had said, Kevin, it's not a question that some things are down and some things are up. It's that you keep lying about the Walmart dinner Okay. The other thing about these prices is the plan to bring down prices, my friends. It won't shock you. It's to lower tariffs on the things where the prices are high. From the administration, from Donald Trump, who said tariffs are not causing the prices to go up, but somehow tariffs lowering will cause the prices to go down. That's some fancy alchemy. It really is. I got to tell you that they can pull off this kind of bullshit, and people don't seem to notice in the press. I mean, maybe they do. And here's the deal: it's not. I got to show you because this is Donald Trump lying himself about those Walmart prices. He tells a lie, and they repeat it. I want you to see. I want you to see that as well. It's important that you remember that he is the world's most prolific liar. Here we go.
And again, I go to Walmart and other companies, and in every case, it's about 25%. That a meal, a Thanksgiving meal and surroundings are 25% lower.
A Thanksgiving meal and surroundings. I think the word he's looking for is sides, surroundings. And let me tell you, I don't think he has ever walked into a Walmart. And as Brandon Wood says, it's 30% higher, not lower. Yeah. So yeah, right. Trimmings or sides. You're right. That would be the word, not surroundings. Okay. So we're gonna focus also. The other person who is one of the biggest liars that I can think of in the Trump administration, of course, is Secretary Scott Bessent. And this man just makes stuff up. And I want to say to you that when I see him, I feel nauseous. I mean, it's like the word unctuous comes to mind, and I feel greasy. I feel when I see him, it's not even a word. It's a sense memory. When I was in high school, one of my summer jobs, which I didn't love, and so I found another one quickly, was working as an usher and also, at the concession stand at a movie theater right here in Michigan. And it was back when this movie theater was a kind of a small movie theater. It was called the Maple Theater. And the usher was this older guy named Mr. Beebe. And there were these high school kids who didn't go to my school. I didn't know who they were, but a friend of mine, my friend Howard, had a job there. And I wanted to get a job there because I love movies. And that was the summer the film A Room with a View came out. And so I think I saw that movie, like one section of that movie, like, I don't know, 10 times, because I couldn't go in until after I was done serving the fountain drinks and the popcorn. And then I can only go in for a while because pretty soon I would have to be serving again. But the thing is, if you've ever worked in a movie theater or around anything with grease, so it had one of those, machines where you pop the popcorn, and when you put, the way it comes out, the way it's made is there's this little disc that you put in the already oiled up popcorn kernels. And when it pops, there's just oil in the air, and it becomes a film on your hair and your skin and on that polyester uniform. And I swear to you, I would go home feeling so gross. And even after a shower, and even after the uniform shirt is washed, you can never get the smell of that fake buttered popcorn out of your mind. And so when I see this man, that's how I feel. And I know you must feel similar things. So I'd like to share for you. This is on Fox News. This Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who just exudes arrogance and grease. He is unctuous. Talking to Maria Bartiromo right now about the Supreme Court and Donald Trump's tariffs. Here we go.
Real quick, Secretary, what are you expecting from the Supreme Court? Tariffs have already brought you, what, $200 billion or so. If the Supreme Court goes against you in this upcoming decision, are you going to have to pay back? The U.S. government will have to pay back $200 billion in tariff revenue already collected. What's the backup plan?
Well, Maria, I want to say this in the strongest possible terms. I think that there are 3 points here. Is one, this is one of President Trump's signature policies, and traditionally the Supreme Court does not interfere with a president's signature policy. 2, this is an emergency authority, which is IEPA. President Trump has successfully used that. To, as we talked about earlier, on the rare earths problem, he threatened substantial tariffs on China, and that made the rare earths flow.
Yes.
2, numerous of the peace deals that he's negotiated, he threatened to put tariffs on the countries, and that got us to the peace deal. 3, when we're talking about fentanyl, we had fentanyl tariffs. And what is more of an emergency than hundreds of thousands of Americans dying?
Okay. So, he has 3 reasons why he claims the Supreme Court will rule in Donald Trump's favor. The first, he says that traditionally, he says, the Supreme Court doesn't ever strike down a president's signature policy. First of all, did this man study history? He's not a lawyer, but does he not know that FDR would like a word about the New Deal? Yeah. Okay. Secondly, so that's just utter bullshit. There's no signature policy. If my signature, this is just, and if it's not common that the Supreme Court does that, is in the cases most presidents don't create a signature policy that is in violation of the law. Secondly, his second idea that this is a true emergency, or his second and third kind of collapse on each other. The second one is like, well, this is under the authority of IEPA, the International Economic Emergency Powers Act. And he's saying that, this was a true emergency, and he's kind of, and then talking about also, talking about this war on fentanyl. Well, and then how if we hadn't done these, we wouldn't have these rare earth magnets. First of all, number one, IEPA, the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, if he listened to oral argument at the Supreme Court, he would know, or if he even spent 30 seconds with this, or 5 minutes maybe he would need, that statute has never been used as to raise revenue. It's only been used. First, you need an actual economic emergency. And secondly, which can't be blanket tariffs at all countries, right? It would have to be specifically at a specific country tailored to an emergency, right? It can't be designed it's never been approved as a revenue raiser. IEPA has been used to impose sanctions on countries, saying we're going to stop trade because we're at war with a country. So we get to this sort of war piece next. Yeah, you can stop trade with a country because of war, but you're not able to. Historically, the Supreme Court has not allowed that to be used just to raise revenue. And so, yeah, okay. So what he's saying are just arguments that will not work in court. There are other statutes and other ways to impose tariffs, not using the IEPA authority. And they know damn well, but they would not be able to do it in the way they're doing it. And finally, this guy is the same guy was claiming, because Donald Trump did, that tariffs weren't taxes and they didn't result in taxing the American people. Then how the fuck come is it that now they have to lower tariffs? Because they're lowering tariffs so that coffee isn't as expensive and all these other reasons, right? But what happened to that we were having these tariffs because of war and emergency? I mean, everything he's saying is a lie. These were not put on because of war or emergency. These were put on to raise money. That's Donald Trump has been bragging about. And they're lying, saying it's going to hit us. It ultimately was a tax on us. Now they have to admit that because they're lowering them. And the excuses they're using before the Supreme Court, not only is the statute they're trying to use, not allow it, but the reason they're saying in court for it, and then he's saying just now, is fucking undermined if you're just lowering them so my coffee isn't as expensive. And by the way, thank you. I would like to have less expensive coffee. There is more disgusting commentary, by the way, from Scott Bessent, the guy who is, I mean, if you can believe this, Bessent has also a theory on why beef is so expensive. He's claiming that it has to do with the immigrants, the immigrants from the southern border, giving our cattle diseases. This man has contributed to this. This man will throw out any excuse. And the thing is, you may think people like that who come up with these little theories to manipulate, you might think, well, that's smart. They can think on their feet. No, anyone can do that who is trained in, not just, sort of, I don't know, just, I would think with a college and graduate degree, or some of us are just born with the ability to come off quickly with responses, with counter arguments. That is not intelligent. What intelligence is knowing the difference between an argument that you raise that is credible and when you use it, if you are being truthful or if you are being deceptive. And basically, people like Scott Bessent have sold their mouth, their brains, and their entire souls to the highest bidder or the most powerful source. And they will say whatever, not like an actor with a script, but they are writing their deceptive scripts. And we need to point that out. Now, I want to also point out to you something that has been in the news about the very, very corrupt Trump administration. And this relates to Kristi Noem. Now, I think you know that, hold on one second. I just want to pull this up. I think you know that Kristi Noem, is the director of the director of HHS. I'm sorry, not HSS, Department of Homeland Security, HS, sorry. That would be Worm Brain. And Kristi Noem has a close friendship, apparently, with Corey Lewandowski. This will all become important I want to share with you the reporting from the end of the week from ProPublica. And this is in the corruption piece of things. We just talked about money and law together. We have another money and law and corruption story. So let me share this with you. This is a ProPublica story. 3 authors on this: Justin Elliott, Joshua Kaplan, and Alex Merjeski. The headline here is, firm tied to Kristi Noem secretly got money from a $220 million DHS ad from these ad contracts, $220 million in ad contracts. Subtitle: the company is run by the husband of Noem's chief DHS spokesperson. So there's someone who works for Noem as a spokesperson. This company is run by her husband and has personal and business ties to Noem and her aides. DHS invoked the emergency at the border to skirt competitive bidding rules for the taxpayer-funded campaign. Now, this is, the article is wonderful. She says things like, they talk about her on horseback saying, break our laws and we'll punish you. But the reality is that she has used $200 million for ad campaigns. She says this is a crucial tool to stem illegal immigration. And I'm gonna stop sharing this right now, so you don't have to stare at the text of this. But the place, so let's talk about this. No firm has closer ties to Noam's political operation than a company called the Strategy Group. I'm reading and paraphrasing right now from ProPublica. This entity called Strategy Group helped her get elected in her 2022 gubernatorial campaign. And Corey Lewandowski, her top advisor at DHS, has worked extensively with the firm. And Corey is married to Tricia McLaughlin, who is the chief spokesperson at DHS for Noam. So Corey Lewandowski, who she has a long-time friendship with, and he's worked, runs a company that is benefiting from this ad money. Plus, Corey happens to be married to someone who works directly for Noam. So what this is, you might think, oh, we hear about this all the time, but let's be clear, according to ProPublica, that the Strategy Group's ad work is the first known example of money flowing from Noam's agency to business controlled by her allies and friends. This is crazy. And I'm going to try to get one of the reporters from ProPublica to join us on this show. Now, what I want to also, so we've talked about some of the corruption here. What I want to also share with you, because I failed to do so, I want to go back to the Epstein issue. There has been a lot of talk because one of the methods that people defending Jeff Epstein and Donald Trump for hanging around with Epstein and these people is that they think that it's worthwhile distinguishing between what Jeff Epstein did to girls between the age of 11 and 17 and the fact that Jeff Epstein really liked 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds. They're trying to say that means he's not sick, as if sickness is the issue. They don't want the word pedophile used because they're trying to say that pedophilia, something they consider evil, is not the same as preying upon 14 or 15-year-olds. They've decided. And Alan Dershowitz has gone on television saying, he came on television saying that to host the guest you just had, who said that Epstein was a convicted pedophile, is wrong. And he goes on to say what he was convicted of back in and went to prison for back in 2008 wasn't the name of what he was convicted for. All people need to do to respond to Dershowitz, first of all, is to say, when you speak of what he was convicted of, you know that there were federal charges that were dropped against him, but let's look at the recent federal charges against him, and let's look at federal law, which would consider and defines this as anyone below the age of 18 as being a minor. And there's no question that that's considered trafficking of children. And even if for the young women who were 18 and above, trafficking, using this kind for that age, using violence and coercion, and also having men batter women, even those who are participating over the age of 18 and don't think it's entirely coercive, allowing people to attack them and engage in activities they didn't consent to within a prostitution setting. Even that, and I'm not saying that happened there, but even when it does, we should condemn that as well. So what they're trying to get at is they want to say, and what Epstein's people and defenders are trying to do, and we had Megyn Kelly try this the other day, is they're trying to say, well, the law is stupid because everyone knows that girls who have gone through puberty are now no longer children and therefore are free game for coercion, trafficking, prostitution. But more importantly, what they're trying to say is it's not a sickness because they're not a small child. And I find that so deeply, deeply offensive because this kind of line drawing ignores the voices of the people who this hurts. And so what I want to share with you is the voice of a girl who her name is Eloise, and she decides to respond here to respond to Megyn Kelly. And I want to make sure that I get this. I'm going to share this with you right now. Sorry, I got to pause this so I can get this open like this. Here is Eloise in her own words.
Hey, Megyn Kelly. I'm Eloise and I'm 14 years old. I wasn't even going to say anything because the topic is an adult one. My mom even made a video about it yesterday because we didn't feel it was an appropriate topic for a child to speak about. But after hearing you go on camera and explain that Epstein wasn't into 8-year-olds, just the barely legal type like 15, I realized you might need an actual reality check from a literal child. So let me help you out. Megyn, people in my grade are turning 15 right now. Some of us still have baby faces. Some of us still have braces. Some of us still call our parents when we're scared at night. Some of us still look like middle schoolers because we basically are. And the fact that a grown woman needs a teenager to explain that is honestly terrifying. Here's the part you seem confused about. Under federal law, anyone under 18 is a child. No asterisk. No, but they hit puberty. No, older kids don't count. Anyone under 18 is a child. You said you were just giving facts, but here's the real fact. What you said wasn't factual. It was minimizing. It was making abuse sound like a technicality. And Megyn, here's the part you really need to hear. If a 14-year-old has to get on the internet and explain to a grown adult with national platform that children are children and there's no age where abuse suddenly becomes less bad, then the problem isn't confusion, it's corruption. Because kids my age aren't supposed to be the ones correcting you. We're not supposed to be the moral compass in a room full of adults who should have known better. But here we are. If my voice makes you uncomfortable, good, it should. Because the minute adults start defending predators by debating the age of a child, you're not protecting the truth. You're protecting the predator. And you shouldn't need a freshman to tell you that.
We love Eloise, right? And I think what's really important here too, what I'm saying in the chat, is it's not okay, as Chris Clark says here, to rape anyone, no matter what the age, right? And what's more, I mean, there's what's right and wrong, you and I can talk about, and there's what the law says, right? But morally, to instrumentalize a person, to not treat them with dignity, to lie to someone about your feelings, to coerce them into sexual activity or to coerce them into giving you something of value, right? We can think about women who might catfish, men who might catfish people, using romance to take money from people, using fake romance to get sex from people. I think that's wrong. Now, I'm not saying all of those things are illegal. I'm saying it's morally wrong according to what I think how people should treat each other. I just do. And I'm not sitting on a high horse. I have in my life, of course, made mistakes. I have never told someone, I don't think typically women do this, but I've never told someone that I love them or wanted to spend my life with them to get money from them and then run off. I'm thinking of some TV show I just watched. I've never, done that kind of thing. I'm not perfect, but the idea isn't to say you've never made a mistake in life, but to say you understand how to better treat people, right? And we can say with clarity that the people around Epstein did not treat people well, which brings me to Larry Summers. Larry Summers, who, if you can believe it, I think that you can. Larry Summers, who was emailing with Jeff Epstein up to the day before he was last arrested, because they were such good friends that Larry Summers, who I should say was once president of Harvard University and once Treasury Secretary. And there's a lot I could say about Larry Summers in the run up to the 2008 global financial crisis, but you would have to read the book Other People's Houses, and I probably would have to reread it myself, even having written it, to be very specific about Larry. But I promise to bring that to the table soon. But let me be clear about Larry Summers. The Harvard Crimson, the student newspaper, just blew open a story about Larry because they put 2 and 2 together. And it shows not just how sexist he was, which is even more revealed in these conversations by email with Epstein, but also how racist and predatory he was. Now, what I want to share with you, and I thought I had this right in front of me. Give me 1 second. I can find it now. Okay. This is from the Harvard Crimson. So I want to pull this up for you right now. This will be our last story before Crazy Town. Let me pull this up. Okay. So you can see this here. And I think I can drop this in the chat so you can see the source. Great. So this, and I love student journalists. Maybe it's because I was one. And I think I always I think I have an affinity for people who seek to discover the truth, who just seek to investigate, who like to write, who like to tell stories. I think that's deeply in my soul. I was an editor of my high school newspaper. I think I've told you the story about how we got in trouble with the headmaster of the school and the whole head of schools because they didn't want us to publish something about a legal issue involving the school, and our faculty advisor said we couldn't. We had written an editorial, so they didn't want us to publish this. Let me just remove this for a second. I want to tell this story again because I think it's relevant. There were we are 3 co-editor-in-chief, myself, a guy named Howard Rabinowitz, and Farley Yang. And we were editors of our high school newspaper when we were seniors. So this was fall of 1984, spring 1985. And to sort of summarize this, there was a lawsuit against our high school. This was Cranbrook here in Michigan. There was a lawsuit brought by someone who had been, I think, an administrative assistant at the elementary school, because this was a place that had an elementary school, like it had a preschool, elementary school, and then these high schools. And at the time, there was a girls' school called Kingswood and a boys' school called Cranbrook, although our classes were so much together. I was in the last class of Kingswood graduates. After that, it was called Kingswood Cranbrook, or it's all one thing. Anyway, the point I'm making is there was a lawsuit brought by a woman who had worked in the elementary school, and she was claiming that she had been fired from her position because she had objected to or had wanted to expose a practice of discrimination in admissions to the preschool part of the program. And what she claimed, and I probably should go back and look at this because I haven't really looked at this in 40 years, but what she claimed at the time was that the preschool wanted to have certain kinds of quotas, so to speak. And so on applications at the top, either right corner or top left corner, if the student applying was Jewish, they put a circle, meaning a bagel, so they could limit the number of Jewish students admitted. And of course, this was disappointing and upsetting to people like me and Howard, being Jewish. And our colleague Farley, who is of Asian descent, and of his parents were, or grandparents had been from China. We were upset about this prospect of quotas limiting access. And we wanted to write an op-ed about it, or our editorial, the three of us. And for some reason, our faculty advisors said no. And so, fine, I guess. We left that space blank. And in the space, there's a lot to that. In the space, I think we put drawings of two bagels and then chopsticks, because that's how we are. But there's more. We took the editorial we had written and made photocopies of it and just circulated around the school. That's the kind of person we were, people we were. And then, of course, I worked on my college newspaper, features editor, and so on. I've always loved student journalists because, fight the power and such. Okay, so let me get back to the Harvard Crimson. What you may know is, Larry Summers has been bitching about the Crimson recently for some reason, because even, he is actually a university professor. Somehow he still has tenure and he still teaches classes, and he's still, been an asshole about some things they've been writing. So let's just back this up so you can see it. The Crimson yesterday evening wrote the following. As Summers sought clandestine relationship with woman he called a mentee, Epstein was his wingman. And so what the Crimson exposed, my friends, is they link things together. We'd already seen these emails where Larry Summers is seeking advice about, basically, I'm quoting, how to get horizontal with this economist, this academic, whose father he knew. And he was trying to ask Epstein, what's the probability that this will happen? And he's also apparently like a co-author with her. And they're different names. When they use the name, it's confusing. They referred to her at one point as Peril, Peril. This is going to relate to the story I just told you about my high school. It turns out that people are pointing out when you call, let me just be clear. I didn't tell you that the woman was of Asian descent. Her father was a high-level person, high level in the Chinese Communist Party. When you call a woman with Chinese heritage Peril, as people have pointed out, it evokes the racist expression, the yellow peril. Peril doesn't just mean danger. It's the yellow peril, which was the racism against people from China that led to things like the Chinese Exclusion Act in this country. Oh, thank you, Gail. And so I want to tell you that they put this together. And they realized that the person that he was trying to get horizontal with was an academic who was his mentee. And these emails between Larry Summers and Jeff Epstein went between November of 2018 and July 5th of 2019. Like, is that 9 months-ish? He's still trying to find a way to get in bed with her. And at one point in November of 2018, Epstein describes Summers as his wingman. Now, at one point in June of 2019, he said, "She is doomed to be with you." Oh, should I add that Larry Summers was married at that time? So the person he was referring to was a macroeconomist by the name of Ku Jin. She is now a tenured professor of the London School of Economics. And I think people have reached out to her. It's probably the case that she had no idea this lechery was going on. And at one point, there is a point that I think that when asked about this, Summers wrote in a statement to the Crimson, "As I have said before, my association with Jeffrey Epstein was a major error of judgment." That is not a response to what he was saying about this woman. The most important thing here in all of this is the way in which, and this is the part I just want to share with you, and I just want to make sure that I get this right, was the way in which Larry Summers understood that this beautiful, brilliant woman, who he saw as gorgeous and brilliant, would have no interest in his schlubby self, so to speak. He didn't say it that way, but that's the implication. He's much older, nowhere in her league. But the only way that he was going to be able to make this happen, I need to share this language with you so you can actually see it. The only way that he was going to be able to make this happen is this. Let's look at this. Summers went on to describe what he saw as his best shot, that the woman finds him invaluable and interesting, and concludes she can't have it without romance or sex. That's from the Harvard Crimson article. I love this, Professor Josh Chaffetz saying here, saying, "Look, I know this weaponization of male academic interest is the oldest story in the book, but it's just so pernicious. It's awful to the women directly involved, but it's also awful to all women in the academy who have to live in its shadow all the time." Josh also says, one of the most senior scholars in his field, hoping, because he is considered that, right, in economics, hoping that a junior scholar will engage in a sexual relationship that he realizes she doesn't want because he is invaluable to her career. This hurts all women, because if this happens, or regardless, people wonder, was it the personal relationship or was it the value of her scholarship? It hurts other women who believe, and other men who believe they don't get access. Now, of course, men hang out with each other, they play golf, they go drinking, they do whatever. Personal relationships help people work together as friends, supporting each other's research. But this behavior that he is saying, the only way to get her to sleep with him is if she thinks she won't have access to feedback from him, access to maybe a reference for her unless she does, sure as hell sounds like the things that the Me Too movement were complaining about, and what Jeff Epstein and Larry Summers thought went too far. Now, one of the, this article is kind of incredible. I want to read you this final part. Let me just share. I'm going to share this with you, actually, so you can see that when I was quoting Josh Chaffetz, it is coming from that article. Here we go. So we're looking at the bottom of this article. Epstein joked that the probability of you in bed with peril was 0 before reversing course and assuring Summers that she is never, ever going to find another Larry Summers. Probability 0. So in other words, maybe who he is will help. So Summers went on to describe what he saw as his best shot, that the woman finds him invaluable and interesting and concludes she can't have it without romance/sex. Wow. Right? That's what I just read to you earlier. Throughout June of 2019, Summers fed Epstein updates about the woman's workload and continued contact. Epstein urged him to play the long game and keep her in what he called a forced holding pattern. And there was one point, by the way, where they were saying, don't get back to her right away, right? Make her need you for her academic success is the thinking. The final message is dated July 5th, 2019, shows Summers still in regular contact with Epstein. That morning, Summers wrote he was in Cape Cod with his family. Bit of an Ibsen play, he joked. And the two men exchange a brief flurry of literary one-liners. The thread ends at 1:27 p.m. Epstein was arrested on the next day. No love lost for Larry Summers. I think we need to do a deeper dive into what it means to treat other people this way. I think we do. Okay, my friends. Yeah. You know what? I don't think I can do Crazy Town after that. I think I need to let it lie right there and say to you how much I appreciate everything you do. And I hope that the memory of Jeff Epstein is a big factor in terms of our lives, so we can get beyond the using, abusing, the violence and hate and dispensing of people, mostly girls, children, and women, to serve the appetites and control of people who would choose to diminish us and lose their own humanity in the process. Thank you, my friends. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub show where how come everyone? Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There was hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub show.